Morant with a running start. It dunks! Oh my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took exception. Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! Ja Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. The Grizzlies used a huge third quarter, a Black Panther performance from Jaren Jackson Jr., a once again massive performance down the stretch from Ja Morant to beat the Pelicans. 5 straight wins over the Pelicans, and they kick off their season with a nice victory. To discuss that game and everything that went on at the FedEx Forum, I am joined by Chris Harrington. Chris, welcome to the show. Tell me everything. What was it like in Memphis?
Well, it was a pretty bad start and a pretty good finish. One of my concerns coming out of preseason was that, even setting aside or before the Jerome, Scotty, Pippen injuries, was that the regular season was going to be extended preseason. And that's what it looked like to start the game. They were down 24-9 at one point. At halftime, I mean, everything was going wrong. Grizzlies were shooting 25% from three. They had major foul problems. They doubled up on turnovers relative to the Pelicans. Santi Aldama was a no-show. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had not made a shot. They were down double digits. It was no good. And then they got going in the second half. Ja Morant got going big time. He I think, if I remember correctly, because I wrote this late last night, early this morning, on the game, he was 10 of 11 in the paint. And that was 8 of 9 in the second half in the paint. So he got more aggressive as the game went on and sort of took over late. Jaren Jackson Jr., got into quote-unquote foul trouble. Thomas Isolo said, I don't care about foul trouble. And as a result, Jaren played 9 minutes in the third quarter with 4 fouls. 9 minutes he would have sat last season with 4 fouls, and had a dominant stretch in the paint on both ends of the floor as the game flipped in the third quarter. And, the Grizzlies brought a home opener against the Pelicans team everyone thinks will be bad, and it was a nip and tuck game, so it's not like a triumph. But I will note, that was probably among the better versions of the Pelicans people probably see this year, because Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, and Herb Jones were all healthy. And Zion was really good and really hard for the Grizzlies to deal with.
Yeah, so the battle of maybe 2 of the more cursed franchises, it feels like, with injury luck over the past few seasons. The Pelicans already suffered a big injury in this game. Maybe Yves Missy going to miss some time. There are bigger stories to this game beyond the foul trouble. I mean, of course.
I buried the lead.
But I want to say this. We buried the lead, but we also haven't really mentioned Cedric Coward is a god yet.
Right.
He was just trying things out in the preseason. He's like, this doesn't matter. And then he engaged full regular season mode. But the foul trouble thing is I think, interesting or funny, because that was a particular passion project of mine and yours. Yep. The stop fouling out your own players. Make the officials foul out our players. So it did feel like a sea change from the previous regime, where it's like Jaren is allowed to play through foul trouble. Jaren fouled out. He finished with 6 blocks, although the statisticians really having trouble live. It was at 8 at one point. And
I was also confused by that, because when I got into the post-game media, I opened my laptop and I had the ESPN box score up. I looked at it, I said, Jared had 7 blocks. So it said, no, 6. And I hit the refresh on my laptop and the 7.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, at one point in the fourth, it was 8. So, it was a funny, but still, Jaren was dominant on that end. Jaren had a really good offensive game, too. I guess what's the biggest story? If we look big picture and not weird niche Grizzlies podcaster, it's just Ja Morant scoring 35 points in less than 30 minutes and once again taking over down the stretch?
Oh, I think Ja Morant and Cedric Coward are the, A and B plots of the game, basically. It was Morant, the first half he was okay. He was mostly settling for jumpers, and it was sort of fed into he doesn't really get into the paint anymore like he used to. And then the second half, he just got into the paint.
Yeah.
And he took over and dominated the game late. And you really felt like in the second half, the Grizzlies were in control when he was on the floor. And then the Coward thing, in addition to getting on our soapbox about fouls, the Venn diagram overlap in our player biases, I think for me and you, is the athletic perimeter player who is active and just disruptive and does stuff.
Yeah.
The Anthony Melton type, the Vince Williams pre-injury, rest in peace, Vince's heel type. Cedric Coward, like he has that to him in terms of if you just get him in the flow of a game and where he's not just spotting up, waiting to, shoot a three and miss it in preseason, and that happened in a major way on both ends of the floor last night. I was very impressed by him in his debut. Yeah,
he made that steal and one layup in the first half. And again, it was just like, it felt like a little shot in the arm. You were at the FedEx Forum. I was hosting a watch party in Nashville over at Nobles East. And I don't know what the atmosphere was like in the Forum. The atmosphere at our watch party, it was just somber the whole first half. And I think that's a carryover. I mean, part of it, maybe a carryover of many of the people in attendance listen to my show, and enthusiasm wasn't soaring going into opening night, and you're dealing with all these injuries. And then the way you're giving up a ton of points, you're not making shots, maybe settling for a lot of 3-pointers. That Cedric Coward play was a highlight where he did that. But then, like, throughout the game, as you said, this is something, and you've been emphasizing this through preseason, that like just watch kind of the way the player plays, not the actual result of the plays yet. And of course, the 3-point shooting numbers were hysterical for Cedric Coward in the preseason. He didn't make
three of 26 in the preseason.
Yeah, and I think it was 0 for 17 in the first 3 quarters, or something like that. So he took one and got fouled, but the activity level, it just seemed like, I don't know, it seemed almost akin to a veteran who was going through the motions. Not saying Cedric was going through the motions in the preseason, but it's like a light switched on opening night, and I can't think of a more promising, I guess outside of VJ Edgecombe, like a more promising debut for this guy, the way he impacted winning, not just getting to the basket and scoring and making all his shots, but like those winning defensive plays and hustle plays.
Yeah, I mean, his play of the game doesn't show up on his box score line, and that is 3 minutes to go with Zion just tormenting the Grizzlies, and he just walls up at the rim and contests the shot, forces a miss, and then gets the loose ball. The phrase I find myself using a lot lately when talking about Cedric Coward is functional athleticism, because there's a difference between athleticism in a draft combine sense, which he has that too. But you watch it on the floor and there's real mobility and there's instinct there. A small thing that I really noticed with him last night that I was impressed by was the aggression and decisiveness he had in transition situations, whether that was with the dribble or with the pass, making quick decisions to get the ball down the floor. There were a lot of times where he would get a defensive rebound and just whip a strong, confident, he had a wayward alley-oop too, but whipping strong passes down the floor, pushing the ball immediately. I just think there's a decisiveness to his game and there's a fluidity to his athleticism, which you could contrast to some other players who, like, people think of as good athletes, but they're kind of stiff a little bit. I've been preaching patience on Coward, and I'm having a hard time practicing what I preach than probably any rookie the Grizzlies have had since like the Morant-Clark class. But there's a pattern with the Grizzlies of people getting excited about a rookie when they have a good moment or two, and then things don't always stay on that pattern, right? The Zion Williams and Gigi Jackson, etc. I just think Coward, in both in terms of his athleticism and his mental approach, is just a way more solid bet than a lot of these guys.
I'm trying to reconstruct the end of the game based on my hazy, fuzzy memory from being at this hectic watch party. So Cedric Coward was out
Morant,
there.
Yeah.
What?
Ja Morant teardrop bye-bye.
Oh, the high floater.
Yeah.
And again, it was so reminiscent of previous Ja performances, specifically against the Pelicans. No, I was thinking about Cedric Coward being out there to close the game. And I know Jock Landale and Jaren had fouled out.
Right.
Was Cedric, would have he been out there if those guys hadn't fouled out? I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe yes.
I think because
Santi was also out there at the end.
Landale fouled out first. And when Landale fouled out, at one point it was Jaren and Coward. They played small. It was Jaren surrounded by Ja, KCP, Wells, and Coward. And that was going to be the closing lineup until Jaren fouled out. So he was going to close the game. I think he was going to close the game once Landale fouled out. Would he have closed the game, come in without Landale fouling out? I don't know.
Yeah, it was, there were times, especially in the first half when you're down and you're looking at just the arrangement of players. And this is, of course, rotation questions are always interesting when you're missing this many guys and you have so many young back end guys. But you had Jaren out there. At one point, it was like Cam Spencer and both rookies. And it was
the Cam Spencer, Javon Small backcourt felt like a little bit of a tightrope walk.
Yeah. And you're sitting there watching like, this is kind of rough. But then the way it all coalesced, and we had questions going in, even who's Isolo going to turn to with all the shorthanded nature of the roster. You saw OMax Prosper actually get the tab to come in and play big front court minutes, and I thought OMax had a really nice game. He also had that nice dunk off a cut. I think Jalen Wells set him up. That was another highlight I remember from the first half when things were not going that great. So OMax comes in, immediately gives energy. I guess notable in the multi-year story arc of the Grizzlies that Gigi's not getting the minutes, but OMax did get the minutes.
So that was interesting to me, and that's something a friend of the show, I'll leave him out of it just in case he doesn't want to be named, but we were talking before the game in the arena about some of the expectations that he had heard about Gigi, and we were both like, these people are going to look up and OMax Prosper is going to be in the rotation. Gigi's not tonight, and that's what happened. I asked Taylor Jenkins after the game a little bit about not Taylor Jenkins.
Wow.
After the game. Yeah. So I asked Isolo after the game about the OMax Prosper playing. And I was sort of wondering, was this like a rotation decision that was independent of the game itself, or was it a game specific thing? And he suggested a little bit of both, but he did say the first thing he said about OMax playing, and the implication was relative to PJ Hall or Gigi Jackson, was that they thought, and this makes sense to me, they thought he was one of their better matchups on Zion Williamson specifically. I mean, it makes sense to me. You look at the roster, OMax would be one of the first guys you would point to, which is an interesting thing in his favor generally, but particularly against that matchup. So I don't know whether, if they were playing Miami last night instead of New Orleans, is OMax in that role relative to a GG or PJ Hall? I think probably so, but it's not crystal clear to me that would have been the case.
Yeah, I was wondering, based on the trend of the preseason, where OMax wasn't really involved in the rotation in the loss to the Hornets, where you just gave up 1 million points and they were basically clowning on the team. And then in the follow-up game against the Heat, where the first half defense wasn't much better, already OMax was in that dress rehearsal type rotation. And I was wondering out loud, is this based on you got to maybe have some energy, rebounding, rim protection? And so I was curious to see if that would be the case. Maybe it was just matchup specific. And actually, I don't know if it's the same guy. I don't think they'll care if I say, but like John Roser from Grind City Media texted me, I think a couple of days ago, was like, who plays more minutes this season, Gigi Jackson or OMax Prosper? And I responded to him. I just wrote back, bleak. That's all I thought. Yeah. But it turns out, hey, enthusiasm sky high after that one win. But yeah, OMax I thought was really good in the role he was asked to play.
Well, one of the things I noted, coming into the regular season was that my best sense was that the franchise was a little more interested in Prosper than PJ Hall in terms of the two-way guys.
Yeah.
But they're also interested in trying to play bigger. And you actually saw that even in this game, when the first subs in the game were with Jaren or with Jock Landale, which was sort of a bigger front line. So even though they're a small roster, they were trying to play a little bit bigger. And I wondered about, about PJ Hall. PJ Hall is not a true center, but he's bigger than OMax Prosper or Gigi Jackson.
Yep.
And I wondered if they would feel like they needed to play him. Obviously, they didn't in this game, but this is also a game where they gave up 17 offensive rebounds. I don't know if PJ Hall solves. We can talk about this or not. I think 3 games from now there's gonna be another big man on this roster more than likely. So I think that this is a problem, an ongoing problem that won't be solved if at all until Zach Edey comes back. But I think what we saw last night is not necessarily what we're going to see every night in terms of the front court, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess I haven't covered it explicitly on this show. The actual official Ty Jerome news. I think my last episode was, I can't imagine it's going to be good news. Ty Jerome going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, so reevaluated in 4 weeks with the calf injury, meaning, of course, they have 4 guys on the shelf for an extended amount of time. After 3 games are played, after this weekend homestand, the Grizzlies will be allowed to add another player under this exemption, this injury exemption, and that will be a guy you can put on a 10-day contract. I did have this question from a Patreon supporter. This is not going to be Meshack. Again, you're not going to burn your rights because you have his draft rights, so you have to save those until you want to give him.
It won't be Meshack.
Yeah. So
there's an active question of position because they have 2 bigs out and 2 guards out, and you could rationally go either way. In most circumstances for most teams, facing the situation, I think you would lean into backcourt. It's easier to like scale down and just play smaller, which they did, most of the game last night. Whereas it's hard to play without a lead guard, and if Ja Morant misses a game, which he usually does, I don't know what they're doing to get through 48 minutes.
Yeah.
But the sense I have is they're really concerned about the rebounding. They're concerned about the big situation, and they don't want to play Jaren heavy minutes at center. And so I think more than likely they'll sign a big, but it depends in part on who's available and who you like better. If there's a guard they like a lot better than whatever big is available, maybe they go that way. I think a big is more likely than not. I'd also keep an eye on the Vince Williams situation.
Yeah, the Vince thing, I'm not super pleased about it. They did announce him being out. He wasn't on the injury report the last 2 games, but for this one, he's out with the heel injury. Not great there. So you're saying big, maybe more likely than a guard. My opinion is based on like what you said about Ja. Like if Ja doesn't play,
right?
For me, that's a bigger disaster than being forced to play PJ Hall or being forced to play OMax more minutes or Santi Aldama more minutes. I mean, in this game, Javon Small, backup point guard, he played 19 minutes, didn't score. You had Cam Spencer and Conchar played a few minutes. And so, like, I feel like if you don't have Ja Morant, you're hard-pressed to win a basketball game. I do think you could get away with cheating some minutes with PJ Hall in there. So that makes me feel like it could be a guard. But then who is the guard?
Here's the question. Here's the question. If you replace Ja Morant with a guard who you could name your guard you can sign to a hardship exception, are you still going to be able to win a basketball game?
That is a good question. I would say
if Jared Butler or
that's the one
Payne or DeLon Wright or whatever is in that spot,
If DeLon Wright were healthy, bring him back. Is he still third in franchise history in triple doubles?
I think he is. They all happened in a week.
They all happened in one beautiful week. I think I was at one. If DeLon Wright were healthy, I'd say sure. Honestly, Campaign, we saw Campaign actually play in the NBA last year. So for me, that's still okay. Let's piece together Campaign plus whoever. Jared Butler, I do weirdly like. Maybe it's because I pick him up in my negative fantasy league. On and off throughout the years. We're like, Jared Butler's going to play for the Wizards tonight. That's at least guaranteed minutes.
There's an endorsement. Negative fantasy league star. That's who they need.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the great point where it's like there is no one. Spencer Dinwiddie's floating out there. It's like, that's a veteran who many teams have said, no, thank you. We don't need you.
I would say it's not going to be Spencer Dinwiddie. If I'm predicting a name, the name I would predict, and I have to throw this out, is Charles Bassey.
Yeah.
Who I thought he's a rebounder, but he does not have 2-way eligibility.
Right.
If he had 2-way eligibility, they would have signed him instead of PJ Hall. I think he got cut by Atlanta. There's some other Alex Lynn is out there. There's some other guys, but I think rebounding is something that they're concerned about, and they don't want to play Jaren too much at center, and they're thinking about maximizing the team when Ja's on the floor, because if Ja's not on the floor, they may not. I don't know if a hardship guard's going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, of the guards out, the free agents out there, Precious Achua, I actually like as a basketball player. Like,
that's another guy I've mentioned.
He's not a legit big, but I mean, who cares? We'll just play basketball. He's tall-ish, but I actually like him as a basketball player. So
how much better, if at all, is he than OMax Prosper? There's a little bit of overlap there with the guys you already have, size-wise and skill set-wise. A little
Precious
bit.
will, in my mind, which could just be too heavily based on anecdotes. In my mind, Precious will knock down a three-pointer. Like, he will hit a corner three, like, if you leave him wide open. Is Delano Banton still a free agent?
Oh, that's a good question.
I like Delano Banton. This is something I was talking about on Fast Break Breakfast. I was like, has he signed in Turkey? Where, like, according to Google, yeah, he apparently he hasn't signed overseas anywhere.
All right. That's a good name I hadn't thought of. For some reason in my head, he was on a team somewhere.
I like Delano Banton, and it might be because I'm a sucker for a 6'6", 6'7" point guard. He is not a good passer, I don't think a good defender, despite his size. But I mean, can you give me 20 minutes in an emergency? I feel like he might be able to. Yeah. Chris, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and wrap this show up. All right, Chris, so the Grizzlies get this exciting comeback win. I mean, we haven't even mentioned 20-0 run. They dropped 41 points in the fourth quarter. I can't remember. Do you remember this play? This was the funniest moment at Nobles East. I don't know if this was the second quarter or third quarter. Santi Aldama had the ball 1 foot from the basket and was trying to pass out of it. He
the arena groaned. You can hear the arena saying, "No, shoot!"
Yeah, like there was people at the thing, and I was yelling. I think I yelled at the top of my lungs, "Score! Score!" And then he finally just turned and made the shot.
Right.
But beyond that, Santi did have the highlight block at the end. Like, Santi stepped up. A little bit invisible at times. Like, do you just feel better? I mean, he was kind of invisible in the preseason. Right. He did make some strong plays. I think he threw the alley-oop in the second half of the fourth quarter. What was your takeaway from Santi this game?
I mean, they need him to step up, given the injuries they've had, given the contract they gave him.
Yeah.
He needs to be a guy who's like a double-digit scorer, at least what he was last season, right? He needs to be at least that. He's not had a good preseason. I thought he was invisible for much of the opener. You hope he can build off of that. And so, it's not like a guy you're hoping will be something. He's already been something, but he needs to step up for the team.
Yeah, he's the guy on the team where you're like, hey, buddy, you should be in the 6th man of the year race, or 100%. Something. Like his contract isn't outrageous, but when you're paying a guy $18 million, that is like normal rotation level. Like, you're supposed to be contributing big time. And so they certainly need him, I feel like, to be an aggressive offensive option. And I would think with the injuries they have, I guess he played 24 minutes, but still, that's with foul trouble. That's with two guys fouling out ahead of him. So you would think he would need to be more involved. We haven't really, I guess, given Jalen Wells and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope their due. They were just solid. I mean, Pope had the slow first half. I mean, Pope 9 for 9 from the line, including some clutch free throws. Jalen Wells looking good. And with that, Chris, I think we can wrap up. I have to figure out a lot of things about my new house, including where my wallet is. Haven't seen it in days.
That's a big one, right?
That's a big one. I'm recording now on a stack. There's a stack of books holding this microphone and camera up. You got to run.
Is that not normal? I do that every time.
I do it sometimes, but I would say the microphone is very precariously placed. I can't find any of my normal things. And anyways, so guys, if you want a bonus episode from me, that's over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Also, by the way, shout out to Marshall signing up recently for the Patreon. If you want more from Chris, go get that at the daily Memphis and the Grizzlies play Friday and Saturday night. Good time to go to Memphis in the FedEx Forum. You got back-to-back home games on Friday and Saturday. Fingers crossed, Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Plays in both of those games. All right, you guys have a great Thursday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.